Howdy, you delicious people. I'm here to interview Hackers. This movie is just so visually eye candy, but then also it's to be quite similar to Star Trek The Motion Picture in the way of which that it's to basically be screensaver of the movie. I have to admit it. But uh, the visuals of this movie are just so fascinating. And so this movie is currently in its second recording, available on Tubi, so I was kind of curious why everybody was going on and checking it out on YouTube. Because that's an easy way to get it right there, is just go on and just watch it on Tubi for free. You don't even have to have an account. You can just go right into there and just watch that film. But anyways, Hackers is to just kind of be like, let's use these computers to kind of get what we want, or let's use the computers to pull a prank on people. And of course, that is to go on and be the only thing that they could really do in this film. Uh, but it was a fairly enjoyable piece. Like, I would go on to say that there's too much convenience in this film that I can't ignore. So that could obviously, like, very much affect my grading. Uh, I would go on and say that Hackers is not a great film, but it's a I'll say uh I'll say a good to solid good movie. So I will thumbs up Hackers. It's fun. Uh but I'll go on and I'll explain it more so you guys get the gist of this movie. So the main focus of this movie is a character, one of these hackers named Joey, who goes on to, and kind of convenient because I kind of in some ways share that nickname. Well, me nickname that person actual name. So uh we have Joey that goes on and is to hack his way into these garbage files. So this has to be the most random thing because this one garbage file goes on to reveal some people doing some stuff underhandedly, and are to go on and have these people who are to have one of them be called the Plague need to go on and create this even bigger hack just so that way it's forced to reveal who this character was who had gone through this garbage file. So we'll start to get where eventually Dave is to come in, and Dave is starting to lose some of his friends as he has gone on to just move here because new kid in school. Because, oh my god, if that idea in a movie or a show or a or a novel of any kind uh, hasn't gone on and just consistently ever been a thing. Because we find out the young Dave is to hack his way into being in a unique circumstance because of his age as a really young lad, and then he can't go on again and do any hacking until he's of the age of 18. And so cut to Dave when he's 18 years old, and he can kind of roam free and do whatever he wants, with the exclusion, of course, like if he gets popped one more time, it'll really affect his life. Like he won't be able to go to college, or like obviously, like the first time around, yeah, he had his parents pay like $4,500 um, from what had all happened. So Dave goes on and meets up with these people, and it seems that all of them should should know one another because they're in the hacking scene. Uh, and so Dave goes on and mentions he's this Crash Override character that hasn't really gone on and done much, but if anything, like he never really mentions to them that he's Zero Cool. And when he finally does reveal that and drops that bomb on everybody, like, oh my god, yeah, you're a legend. And so then they realize how much skill this guy really does have, because at first they're just like, oh, this guy just knows all this stuff, but they don't realize how really skilled he actually is and how really smart he really is until he has to explain, yeah, I have a history. So eventually this disc here, this yellow disc, ends up getting tossed around people, and eventually they figure out what the disc entails. That there is to be this hacker called the Plague who was to basically go on and take certain, like, 10 cents every once in a while off the company without them noticing. And honestly, isn't that like the Superman 3 thing? And eventually Office Space copies that Office Space movie, where they're like skimming off the company, and they don't notice it because the fraction of it is so low. But then eventually, over time, yeah, it becomes this big, huge sum of money. So yeah, like, why is it that everybody just consistently has that idea of just stealing small pennies off of the company? Like, I think that probably went on to probably end up being also maybe done in the Ewan McGregor, Hugh Jackman movie Deception also, but I'm not exactly sure. I just knew that they stole a load of money, and that's all I can really just have retained from that. So, so you could probably understand why. Like, I wasn't exactly going like, man, this movie is like groundbreaking, because like to me, I'm like, they're taking some just goofy ideas, and like this is a prank movie, and really, yeah, but like I can appreciate it because how many like hacker movies are there? How many movies like focus on like computer stuff? Like that seems to be very rare. I had gone on to see, God, what was it called? Let me pause here for a second. I have to figure out what this title is. Mind Gamers. Yeah, I really had to go on and look that up because there was no way I was going to remember that movie title. That goes on and has a number of people just kind of all like connect together to eventually make one person to be able to move. So for this film, we have the hackers that are trying to hack into the Plague's building so that way they can go on and try to oust what had happened, to try to go on and prevent this whole Leonardo da Vinci uh, virus that's kind of going on, and try to also go on to get focused on like, oh, hey, yeah, these are the bad guys, go after them. Like, yeah, you probably still got on and arrested these hackers, but if anything, like, they actually did good and not evil. So it would honestly be interesting if they were ever to go on and do hackers in the modern day. Like, how drastically different would this movie be now? Like, could we go on and could we have it just be like, oh yeah, this guy hacked this area just off of his phone, and because yeah, like there are cases where we would see in like Live Free or Die Hard where somebody's like, well, yeah, like he hacked into this really lavish place with just a laptop. Yeah, so for this film, um, it's fun. Like it is to just be just kind of unique and interesting, and uh, like I did enjoy it. Like this wasn't a struggle to watch. So I would recommend it. Like I would say that yeah, like this movie would probably feel very dated to some people, but I didn't feel that way. Like I felt fine. Like maybe because I was born during the 90s, maybe this didn't affect me as much. But maybe if you were to not go on and be born in the 90s, maybe it'll affect you more. I don't know. I don't really think it's relative. I don't think it really matters. Irrelevant. Anyways, so I think it's about that time to just push on into spoilers about this. Yeah, like there isn't a whole huge amount of stuff to say about this film because I am to not go on and be a computer guy myself. Like if anything, also there isn't a lot of computer movies out there. If there is, let me know in the comments below. There's maybe like Johnny Mnemonic, and that's all I know. And I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right. The Keanu Reeves movie. Uh, like that seems kind of like a computer film. That is to be kind of like a Lawnmower Man. Lawnmower Man is kind of a computer film, but then also it's uh, I haven't really seen it, so I'd have to really go in and be sure that I'm making that clear consensus. But anyways, I think it's about that time to just push into spoilers because I'm just kind of rattling off all these other things because there's a very brief explanation of this film. So thank you for watching this. Thank you for checking this out. So without a doubt, I'm going to go on and push on the spoilers. Again, this movie is available on Tubi. That's an easy app for you to be able to go on and watch this movie instead of trying anything else. But some people may go on and just check it on YouTube anyways. That seems to be the route that people are going into currently right now. Other than that, yeah, let's pause here. I'll get on my cast list and I'll whip out whatever is to have happened in this film, both blows, scene for scene, and just have fun with it. So, with that said, let's pause here and let's get all that out. Alright, Seattle 1988. You guys remember that meme or whatever that footage is that some people just always kind of place in their videos with the whole like FBI open up and then they barge through the door. Yeah, that kind of feels like that happens so often in this film, and it kind of gets to the point where it gets funny. How like there's sometimes where it's to go on and be that the FBI is coming for somebody, and then all of a sudden it's a dream. Oh, okay. Or there is so many times that these people just keep barging into these people's homes and collecting them, and then come to find out like there's sometimes where it's like, well, we can't really get anything on them. But anyways, so in the beginning of this we have Seattle. So all of a sudden we have this SWAT team coming out of this truck and they're running to this home. I'm like, what the heck is going on? All of a sudden we have Dave's mother, and she's so confused what's going on. So they make their way to find Dave because that's who they're arresting. This guy, Zero Cool. So, which man, that is such a cool name. Zero Cool, cool. Whatever. Yeah, that is such like an awesome name. But like, Yeah, I think there's a number of people that are probably like, I beg to differ. I think it's a silly name. I think that's a but anyways. So the next we see this attorney, and she's going on and talking about Dave Murphy, who is also be known by Zero Cool, and the crimes that he had committed, and all of this is to eventually transition into this judge going on and finding Dave guilty, and that he won't be able to go on and ever use a computer or a a phone until he's 18 years of age. And then they slam the gavel on him. And oh, they also say that, hey, yeah, parents, you have is a $45,000 fine. Oh my God, how are these people gonna live? Like, I guess they would have to just pay this debt off. Yeah, like these parents or just this kid is gonna be paying this off for the rest of their effing life. Unless they file bankruptcy or something. Yeah, that's the only probably like way out of that. So the kid gets dragged off, goes into this car, and now we cut to 7 years later. Both Dave and his mother, because we find out in the movie that his parents had gotten a divorce and there was a custody battle, and Dave decided to go with his mother. So cause I was thinking, I'm like, well, whatever happened to his dad? And then it's like, oh, they explained that in the movie. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Because I was trying to figure that out. I really just think that they just didn't want to have a dad in this film. They really wanted to just make the cast as small as it possibly could be. But also, this cast was really impressive. Like there was at one point where I was like, "Is that Mark Anthony?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's the singer Mark Anthony in this film." Like, wow. Also, we have Penn Gillette or Penn Gillette, like the razor. Anyways, we have Penn Pellant from Penn and Teller. I was like, oh my god. I'm kind of interested what Penn might have done if he wasn't doing this role. Like, was he going to be the villain in this movie? But then eventually they just made him just kind of like uh, this side of like kind of like sidekick to the villain character. I'm just kind of curious. But anything, a really kind of interesting cast of characters here. Even Lorraine Bracco, who plays Margot in this movie, who plays like uh, the female character to Plague, the main bad guy. Anyways, so 7 years later, so both Dave and his mother are on this plane together. If Dave's mother actually does have a name, I'm not gonna say it here. Like if anything, I'm going by secret hacker code names, and I'm besides Dave. Like I don't know if will even remember to say either Kate or I'll say Byrne, because they call her Byrne. Her nickname is Byrne. So if I say Byrne, I mean Angelina Jolie's character. So just so that way it simplifies this, so that way people won't get confused when I'm talking about this film. So cut to Dave looking at the world, because of course we always have to do these frickin' shots in all these movies. God dang it! Can we get to one movie, for the love of God, that doesn't have some scenery shots in a film? That doesn't do that just for the credit part of it? Man, even Up in the Air. Like we just have scenery, but that actually makes the more sense to do that. But still, like it bugs the crap out of me that we're just getting scenery shots. Like in a film or in a world where like that stuff just doesn't make sense, they have to make sense of it. They have to figure out a way for how they can just do city shots for the beginning of the film and then have credits in it. It's just so annoying of why that has to continue to happen. But here's the thing. So the scenery shots turn into actually like these coded things. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. All right, I'm intrigued. Like you got me. Like it looked like all this code, and it looked like all these buildings that just kind of look like computer stuff. So maybe Dave was just looking at all this stuff as he would like a computer, because he's finally realizing that it's now time for him to be able to go on and finally be able to touch a computer again, taste a computer, type away at that bad boy. So the next thing we see is it being late at night, and Dave is on the computer typing away, and his mother kind of pokes in and be like, "Hey Dave, what are you going on doing?" And he's like, "Well, I'm just taking control of some TV company." It's like, "Oh, that's nice, honey." Like, well, just finish up and just get ready for bed. Yeah, we just have so many parents in this film that really give a when their kid goes to bed. Isn't that nice? Yeah, like my parents did also like care about when I was to go to bed, but eventually I was just kind of keep pushing my parents, like, "Hey, could I just stay up later?" Like I would always be like, one more hour, and then I'll go to bed." And they're like, "Okay, fine." And then I'd realize like how much sleep I was never really getting, and then eventually my like senior year of high school, I was just so like I was so excited to get done with high school, just so that way I would not have to go on and get up early ever again. But then I had a job. And man, those jobs is like, yeah, we want you to wake up early. I'm like, no. Like I thought I could go on and live the rest of my life without having to get up early. But man, was I wrong. Uh, but anyways, so wow, what a burden life becomes, right? I should cry tears of horror. Anyways, so we would go on to have Dave, who I'll call Crash now because that's a more attractive name, isn't it, than Dave? I'll call him Crash. Uh, Crash goes on to call up the TV studio and is to ask this security guard because he's on a deadline, or Crash says he's on a deadline, and he's hoping that the security guard can read this modem and rattle off these serial numbers on the modem so that way he can go on and kind of get into the system without like this guy knowing what he's trying to do. So Crash enters in and he's watching this specific TV station and he hates what's playing on there because this guy is like this televangelist kind of guy, or like this guy is gonna come on here and kind of tell you how he feels, and and Crash is like, yap yap yap, get a job. So Crash goes on and he adjusts the TV of what's going to be on it. he's gonna go on and get this VHS tape, because this is still when VHS tapes were a thing, and he's gonna go on into the computer and reprogram what's going on the TV, and instead he's gonna go on and he's going to watch an episode of The Outer Limits. All of a sudden, on his computer screen, a person goes on and types away, "You have tread upon my domain, and and you must now suffer. Who are you? Who are you?" So Crash is at first tempted to type in Zero Cool, as if this person is supposed to know who that is. But then Crash is to realize that he may get in trouble if he puts that name down, because he's hacking into something. So instead, he just puts in Crash Override and then asks who wants to know, and the response is acid burn. I'm sorry, Angelina Jolie. You could have come up with a more cooler name than that. Or I'm sorry, Kate. So I thought it was very weird to come to find out in the early parts of this movie that both Zero Cool and Acid Burn, who is Angelina Jolie's character, is like duking it out here, because it doesn't really make sense. Like, wouldn't it have been whoever like controlled that TV company? Wouldn't they have come in and like? I just thought that this was so weird of why they're fighting it out the way they are here, and then eventually they'll fight it out later also. So they're fighting back and forth, trying to control this TV station, and Acid Bird goes on and says, "SEZ, leave before you are unplugged." Uh, Maybe she was to type, "Please leave before you are unplugged." I have no idea. Um, says I yeah I'm not good with abbreviations. Like, there's a lot of times where I would go on and have people like text me stuff, like girlfriends or friends or whatever, and some people would go on and do that whole abbreviation thing. I'm like, what did that mean? And they're like, "Oh, it's I don't know, or I don't care, or da 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 da." Or be like, "Oh, okay, well, couldn't you have just said I don't care? I don't know." Um, yeah, because a lot of times, like, people aren't good with knowing abbreviations. Plus, also, like, a lot of people are kind of like out of the texting game for a really long time. Like me, I'm out of the texting game. Uh, if anything, I also need to always check my text before I send them, because like I realize that there's like a whole sentence that I didn't complete. It's horrible. Anyways, so because I don't know, like I'm just typing away and I'm like thinking faster than I'm actually typing. Uh, Anyways, so Acid Burn goes on and is to threaten Crash here by saying like, "Well, I'll snap you like a toothpick," uh, and Crash goes on and says, "Hey, mess with the best, die with the rest," and eventually we'll come to find out that that's to be a thing that kind of returns at some points when eventually Crash is to go on and kind of defeat people. That's his like mantra, his uh, like his phrase. Anyways, the connection between them, I guess, because of so much issues of them kind of going on and doing what they're doing, all of a sudden the connection terminated, and Crash now has to go to sleep. So the following morning, we would go on to have Crash's mother, and this is some good comedy. Like, I'm really enjoying Crash's mom actually in this film. Uh, I hope that this actress did really well after this because she kind of deserves it. She's really good in this role. So, plus also, like, I like how just blunt she is. Like, where she even goes on and asks her son, it's like, son, are you jacking off? She basically asks him that. Like, are you jacking off? Do you like women? Yeah, because like if all he does is just sits in his room all day, well, who am I to say um, anything? But yeah, so I don't sit in my room all day. I sit in another room most of the day, and then I sit in this one and do this review, which takes way too long. I'm sure for a lot of people, they've gone on to state that. Anyways, uh, so Crash's mom goes on and she hopes that there is a way that she can cut off the electricity in Crash's room so he won't go on and won't do anything on the computer. So, and here's where Crash's mom goes on and like, hey, you like women, right? Like, because eventually she's on the phone with somebody and there's a contemplation of like, well, maybe he's just jerking off there and playing with himself. Maybe that's what he's doing. So, uh, so Crash's mom legitimately asks him, like, well, hey, like, do you like women? Like, are you playing with yourself? And so eventually Crash in response goes on and says, well, yeah, I'm still a virgin. And then he slams the door and goes in the shower. So Crash's mom notices the telephone line and that it's in his room. And it's like, well, hey, wait a minute. Uh, did you do hacking last night? And goes on and accuse him. And so Crash's mom says, hey, like, don't go on and do what you did when you were a young kid. Because if anything, like, if you do this one more time, it's going to jeopardize your future. Like, you're not going to get into college. And it's going to ruin your life forever. So, like, he's too smart to not go to college and be, like, eventually this really successful guy. So, Crash's mom goes on and says, like, well, yeah, like, if anything, like, you're gonna love it here in New York because it's a place uh, of people that never sleep. It's a city that never sleeps. So, cut to now, Crash needing to rollerblade to school. So, Crash is trying to figure out where to go because he's never been in this building before, his school building. So, he goes on and he bumps into this one guy who's on the phone. I'm sorry, Crash, if you're to go on and try to find anybody to assist you, why would you go for a person that's on the phone? That seems to be like the least like person who would want to help you because like, dude, I'm on the phone. I'm not gonna help you with shit. So Crash goes on and talks to a guy who eventually his name is to be the Freak, which I'll just call him Freak for the rest of this review because it'll be easier. Uh, Plus, also, I don't know his actual name. Yeah, they just call him Freak in the IMDb anyway, so that's what I'm going with. So, good enough. So, Crash ends up asking Freak where is uh the principal's office so he can go on and transfer into this school. And Freak is so distracted on the phone, he's not going to help him out. Uh, so eventually Crash just wanders around and is to figure out where to go and is filling out these transfer forms. And so he's going on and be met by Angelina Jolie's character, who I will go on and either call Kate or I will call her Byrne. Um, so Kate shows up, and immediately when Crash looks at her, he like looks at her lips, which is kind of weird. But when he's looking at her lips, all of a sudden he's getting all this like huge amount of uh just smattering of visuals in his head that is basically just either sexual or just like people kissing people or lips or something like I yeah I think for a while there was just something about Angelina Jolie's lips for some reason. And then eventually people were to find out, oh, she actually has an attractive body besides that. But anyways, so Kate goes on and takes this guy's transfer papers and then asks if he's coming. It's kind of funny how when she continues to ask him questions, how it even gets to the point where it's like, well, do you speak English? like I think I'm asking all the questions that you should be able to answer. So the two of them walk away and make their way through the school. Kate goes on and gives him instructions uh, of where places are and what class he's going to be in. And Crash says, "Oh, I'm not going to be in your class." And she's like, "No, you're not going to be in my class." And kind of meaning that he's not good enough to be with her. So he's just like, "Well, give me time. Like, if anything, you're going to know how intelligent I am." And then Crash will go on through the computers and start goofing around and start making adjustments. And Crash will go on and start to find information about Kate, which Freak over his shoulder will go on and see him doing. But anyways, as a student leaves one of the classrooms, he ends up mentioning about this pool and is telling Kate, "Hey, yeah, tell him about the pool." So there's supposedly a rooftop pool, and Kate goes on to tell Crash to like investigate it, so he does. Come to find out there is no pool, and he's just stuck up there, and all the other guys that had gotten caught up there also are like, "Hey, leave the door open," and then they don't, and then Crash doesn't, and then all of a sudden it's raining out. So Crash comes back into school like with just like mud coming from the bottom of his shoes. And Kate realizes, oh, he found the pool after all. Yeah. So, but we're gonna start getting some tit for tat here, and it's like, oh, you guys played a prank on me. I'm gonna go on and do the return to get even, and then we're gonna consistently see that that Kate and Crash, like they're just to go on and just have this rivalry throughout a good chunk of this movie. But eventually they realize that like they're having dreams about one another, sexual dreams. Anyways, so we have Crash and he's in this computer class because yeah, a guy who had hacked into a thing, yeah, really needs to have a computer class out of all things. So here's where Crash goes on and is hacking into stuff and finding out about his records and Kate's records and making adjustments. And Freak is watching over his shoulder. So since Freak is realizing that Crash has some kind of crazy skill, he goes on to follow him. he ends up giving him this like brochure for this place to go, I believe on Friday, and he goes on and reveals himself that he is the Phantom Freak, the king of Ninex, whatever that means. And so eventually another hacker called Joey is to realize that he doesn't have a code name, that eventually he needs one. And he's interrupting the two of them trying to figure that out. And he's like, well, should I be called Ultra Laser? Should I be called Doctor Doom? And it's like, I'm sorry, Doctor Doom was already taken. I'm not sure you know much about Marvel comic books. Uh, but anyways, but everybody just likes the Doctor Doom thing anyways, and people kind of steal it or kind of a bit creative with those kind of comic booky names where it's like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna go on and combine these two different names together to just sound slightly tweakingly different. But anyways, so Crash goes on and makes his way to that pamphlet place that they had gone on to have Phantom or the Freak give him earlier. So he follows that up. All of a sudden, while he's walking by, he sees Serial Killer. Serial is to be played by Matthew Lillard here, and he's going on and he's trying to sell uh, these cassettes or whatever is to be this time period of the equivalent of music. Um, Whether it's because it's 95, so it's probably still going to be either cassettes or CDs, right? It's got to be somewhere in there. And so Serial is going on and trying to sell this music about all these people who had gone on and died in a certain way by vomiting to death. And he thought that was a really cool idea to sell people that. And so strange. So, and it's like a mixtape of all the people who had died by vomiting. Anyways, so maybe also that's kind of like a like when you think about it, like vomiting could also be like a term for like how when people like kind of speak too much or say too much, like yeah, you just vomited all that out. Anyways, so we have Freak. He goes on and he is calling upon this payphone, and he's not paying for it because he goes on to record the sound, and then he realizes that he can just make this free call. So as Crash makes his way into whatever this hideout oasis, this place is that he had gone into, he goes on and immediately notices that Burn, uh, Acid Burn, Kate, god dang it, now I'm gonna ponder if I should say just Kate this whole time, because people may get confused. I'll just stick with Kate. That's probably better off. So Crash bumps into Kate, and she's going on playing this video game, and she has the highest score. And it's like, and so Crash goes on and says, "Yeah, that's a nice score for a girl." And he's like, "Oh, you think you can do better?" So Crash goes on and steps up, plays this game, and Kate is to be way too close to him, like uncomfortably close. And there is all of a sudden to be Kate's boyfriend, who I believe his name is Curtis. At some point, this movie will correct me if I'm wrong, because they'll say what his name is. So Curtis goes on to start talking to Kate, and eventually Crash is like, "Well, yeah, like, Kate's a little bit too close, so if anything, yeah, go on, you collect her. Like, yeah, that's fine. So Crash goes on and does so absurdly well at this game that he reaches the top score. Kate is absolutely upset because she doesn't like to be defeated. I would say beaten, but that sounds really weird. So Freak goes on and says, "Hey, congratulations, Dave! Like, yeah, you just beat this game and you kind of did better than Kate. So yeah, you're gonna have an enemy for the rest of your life." It's like, yeah, like there could be a lot worse enemies. So Crash goes on to notice the makeout sesh that both Kate and her boyfriend are having on this bike. And so Crash ends up asking Freak, like, hey, who's that? And so, yeah, I'm right. It's Curtis. Thank God. Man, like, I look at the cast list maybe like one whole time, and like I can remember a good chunk of these names for some reason. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess over time of just kind of doing this, like maybe my photographic memory is just a little bit better. And there's gonna be one character, Nikon, who has like a photographic memory in this film. So yeah, so that's kind of interesting. But like I'm just a very visual person, so if anything, like I'm really not good with names, surprisingly. But like if I just go on and see something visually that has their name on there and their face next to it, like I can connect it better. So, anyways, we'll see if I can go on and retain all these names when we get to them. So, Crash ends up asking Freak what exactly this guy does for a living, and Freak says nothing. He just looks cool all day. So we cut to Crash. He's at home and he hacks into the fire system in the school, and at a very specific time this fire alarm is going to go off and the sprinkler system is going to turn on. So Crash is in the hallway and he's waiting and just kind of looking at his watch. Freak coincidentally is in the hallway and he looks at Crash like, well, hey, what are you doing in the hallway? And all of a sudden Crash opens up this umbrella and then everybody starts running out of school all crazed while of course Crashes to just have this umbrella and he's walking around. Wouldn't Crash go on and to have done the exact same thing if he just pulled the fire alarm? But if anything, like I guess maybe they didn't have fire alarms in schools maybe during that time period. I have no idea. So Kate ends up asking Crash what the hell is going on, and Crash ends up saying, "Well, I guess the pool on the roof is having a leak, so that's why everybody's all wet now, is it?" Yeah, tit for tat. Like, hey, she made him wet. If anything, this is to be in response to that. Plus, also, it wasn't good enough that he beat her gaming score last night. He had to kind of further go on and get even with her because of the whole pool thing. So yeah, like this guy is crushing it right now, and really just not winning this girl over. So we now have this class, and we go on to have a number of people that have these quotes. And Kate's character goes on to have a quote that is to have come from her mother. And the teacher is like, well, like, why are you going on and quoting your own mother? Like, if anything, like, she's not really uh, an established author. And Kate turns to him. It's like, my mother just sold 2 million copies of a book. Like, I think she's very established. He's like, oh, touche. So the teacher goes on and continues and reads uh reads Crash's little thing on the chalkboard there, and the teacher is to be pretty impressed, but then also Kate turns to like, he's not even in this class. And so the guy looks at his attendance sheet. It's like, actually, he is. He is in this class. But then also, we have Serial, who he goes on and he quotes Ozzy Osbourne. And the teacher looks through his attendance sheet and realizes that Serial is not actually in his class. And then Serial's like, oh, this is woodshop. And then so he leaves. So, cut to Crash being with his mother. And his mother ends up asking Crash, like, what? Hey, how was school today? Like, what did you learn? I'm sure he didn't really learn anything. But Crash says, I learned revenge. And so his mother's like, oh, you met somebody special? uh, so Crash's mother is going on and telling him that he needs to fill out all this paperwork out because it's just his future. So Crash is eventually going to go on and apply for colleges. So I guess this guy assumes that he's going to go to a college. I thought it was kind of funny how Crash makes a joke about mowing the lawn here, and he's like, "Oh, there is no grass. I don't need to mow a lawn." And so she's like, "Well, unpack if anything." So we cut to Crash meeting up with Freak, Serial, and Joey, and they're all at this table together. I guess at that same uh, hideout that they were before, where Crash went on and beat Kate's high score. So we have Serial that goes on and asks Freak if he can score a fry off of him. But eventually, I think Serial goes on and takes too many fries. And then Freak ends up telling Serial, it's like, well, hey, you're going to owe me a fry pack. And then Serial is to say, it's like, oh, Joey was doing it. And Joey's like, no, I didn't. And Serial's like, oh, well, like, I hate you because you're lying. And he's probably telling the truth. So Crash is really at this round table so that way he can meet up with Serial Killer or Serial. And we then go on and we have Joey who's mentioning how he had hacked into uh, a bank last night. And they're telling him, dude, like, you hacked uh, into a bank from your own home. Like, that is the stupidest move you ever did. Because, like, if anything, you could easily get caught that way. But Joey was going on and talking about how he had gone on to have some Bacon Idaho spit out $700 while no one was looking. So, also within the scene here, we have Serial that starts pulling all these books, and Crash seems to know what all the books are and all their separate names. Like a guy that has a pink shirt, uh, a big red book that really is to be just so inconvenient of its size. And the more and more that he pulls out all of these books, like he has all the names for all of them, and it's kind of funny. So we make our way into, after this scene is to be done, uh, that Joey is gonna want to go on and want to do even more hacks because eventually Freak and Serial go on and tell Joey, besides him, like, hey man, you need to kind of protect yourself with all these, with the hacker going on. So, but also it's like, well, hey, he also needs to go on and get a really substantial hack. He needs to do something that's gonna like put his name on the map, even though he doesn't have a name. So it's kind of like, well, so Joey goes on and hacks into what is to be whatever Plague's building is. I don't quite know exactly what it is, but if anything, uh, we'd come to find out. Here's where Penn's character Hal comes in. Hal goes on and he calls Plague, who is to be kind of like uh, the bad guy, but also is to be like the hacker guy. So Hal goes on to call Plague as, at first Hal goes on and says what his actual name is, and the guy says, "Hey, call me the Plague," and it's like, "Well, Mister the Plague." Of course, you have to answer it that way. So Hal goes on and mentions how there's a problem uh, going on the net, and that they need his help. So Hal is going on and saying that they believe they have a hacker, and so Plague has to go on and has to deal with this. So Joey goes on through his computer and eventually is to just go through files. And weirdly enough, he goes on to what is to be the least important one, which is to be garbage. He goes through this garbage file. So Joey all of a sudden goes through this garbage file and decides that he wants to just download it all. Not sure why, but he does it anyways. He copies it. So, the funny thing that I actually liked about Joey's computer is he has this, like, Judge Dredd screensaver on there. So, I'm kind of curious if there is any kind of real reason why they had Judge Dredd as the background on there. Like, was there any kind of reference to that? Like, was there any kind of like? I'm just kind of curious why they had that specific screensaver on this computer. Maybe it's just coincidence. I have no idea. Either way, I was just fascinated by that. So we make our way to have the Plague uh, kind of skateboard his way in, and so now we have the Plague that is going on and is going to try to deal with this hacker. So eventually, what goes on to happen is Joey's mother comes in as Joey is trying to copy this file. And Joey's mother goes on and tells him, like, okay, time for bed. So he goes and jumps into his bed. And Joey's mom just turns the computer off. And he's like, oh, like I was trying to download that, but she turned the computer off. So he's like, well, like I guess I can't do anything now. So finally, since the hack is technically stopped, they realize that it's like, um, well, he's gone. But if anything, like they have his location, they tracked him down. So the next thing we see is Joey going on and taking the disk from his computer and putting it in a vent somewhere where he can hide it, because he somehow thinks that this garbage file has some value to it. But eventually, they'll come to find out that actually the garbage pile really does have value with it, surprisingly enough. So now we cut to Freak, Serial, and Crash making their way to Nikon. And it's kind of funny. So they go on to have Nikon, who's to just talk to Crash. Say, it's like, well, who are you? It's like, oh, I'm Crash Override. Who is that? Like, have you done anything? And Crash is like, no. And so Nikon is like, well, like, what? Did you just buy a computer for Christmas and you think you could be a hacker now? So Nikon goes on and lets every one of them in. And Serial will start to have a pattern where he'll start to go on and ask people if he can crash at their place. And then eventually in the movie, they explain why he does that. And so, yeah, Nikon is willing to let the Serial kind of crash there. Nikon actually, like, the way that they introduce this character is kind of cool. Like, he kind of looks like a Jedi, or like the hoodie thing is kind of cool. Uh, but if anything, yeah, like, we have all these people making their way into this living room. It looks like a living room to me. And they're all watching the telly. So they show this character called Richard Gill, and he'll become their uh their kind of nemesis, because he's to be the guy that kind of deals with uh like hackers. He's like the agent. He's like the person that is going on and busting people when they're to go on and be hacking things in this reality. So, and they call him a real boner. So they transition to a another show, and it's to be called Hack the Planet. We have these two characters that are both Razor and Blade, and it's kind of funny how, like, we would have Crash that thinks nothing of these characters, but eventually they'll need their help. They'll need their assistance to kind of pull off this caper by the end of the film. So here's where Razor and Blade will go on to explain the whole phone thing and how people can go on and be able to pay, uh, or be able to, like, get a phone call for free, basically. So, and that they can do it over and over as long as they have a tape recorder. Which I'm kind of curious if that actually during that time period did actually work out, or if it's just some bullshit thing that they just did, uh, just to, like, have that be like an extra hack that they can just have put in the film just to seem smart, but no one was ever going to really try it, probably. So now we cut to Joey. Joey's in the shower buffing it out, just getting all soaked up. Any other bullshit that I can just say? And so here's where Mark Anthony comes in, and I have no idea who actually Mark Anthony is in this film, as far as his name is concerned. He's Agent Ray. So Mark Anthony, as singer, is Agent Ray, and I'll have to remember that because eventually I'll see him a lot more. So, and I'll probably just call him Ray. Ray goes on and busts in with some other agents to collect Joey here. Joey is to be just Tal and nothing else, and then all of a sudden he comes to find that his computer is being grabbed and taken away, because of course they're collecting evidence. Joey's upset because he calls his computer Lucy, and so they're going on and they're taking this whole computer, and so Agent Ray goes on and speaks with Richard Gill, or Dick Gill, just Gill. I'll call him Gill. And Ray goes on and is to be very technical about what all they had found there. And Gil is like, dude, like, layman's terms, like go on and don't give me all this tech garb. Like, just try to explain it to me in like the easiest way possible. And so the guy does is like, man, like, so Gil is to be this guy that's kind of new to all this, and like for him, like he probably never wanted to go on and do this kind of stuff, but he's just kind of forced into doing it. Um, so we have Gil that is going on and finding out that he is to be interviewed by this reporter, and so now we cut to uh, Inspector Ray and this other officer, and they're going on to uh, collect and arrest people. So now we cut to this office. So here's where the plague is to go on here and mention how these people should adjust their passwords, because eventually Joey and the rest of the crew will go on and say there's a certain number of passwords that people know that they're going to use the most: love, sex, secret, and God. And so Plague eventually realizes that Margot is to probably have her password be God, and that maybe she should change it soon. So Plague goes on and mentions how there is a virus uh, called the Da Vinci virus that is to be set upon this company. And come to find out what this virus is doing is it's going to control their boats to make it so that the boats are to tip over and cause a catastrophe. And so we have a simple question of like, well, hey, why can't these boats be controlled manually? And the play goes on and says like, well, like we just don't do that anymore. Uh, like there's no one to man these things. So if anything, like we just have to give in to this person because yeah, we don't know which, because they have several boats and they aren't sure which boat it is that this person is to have taken control of because it's random. So we then cut to Margot and Plague, and like there's so many people around these two, but they're just talking very openly. So let me pause here for a second. So Margot and Plague are talking about everything that they had gone on to do, and mentioned about how Joey had found out about that garbage file and was curious about how much that those people had figured out about the garbage file. And if anything, like there's a risk about what was in that garbage file getting out because it's $25 million of information. So and it's because of the whole of them like taking 10 cents like just consistently to where no one notices it, and then it's just a huge lump sum of $25 million. So So Plague goes on and meets up with Gil, and they talk about how they try to comb everywhere, and they're nowhere closer to the disc of which uh, that Plague was talking about. So we now cut to Agent Ray and another agent. This agent is going on and talking to Agent Ray about this whole like manifesto or this whole um, thing where he calls it like commie, uh, like call to arms kind of thing. And so he's rattling all this stuff off, and Agent Ray says that it's cool, and so we now cut to Crash, Serial, and Freak, and they're all in the bathroom. And here's where Crash finds out what happened to Joey, that he got busted. And so they aren't really sure of why exactly what he was exactly busted for. But Crash goes on and asks them and says, well, hey, do you think he could hack into something really substantial like a Gibson? And they're like, well, we don't know, but if anything, like, it seems that he's going to be grounded for the rest of his life. So Freak really is here to explain to Crash that there's going to be a party tonight at Kate's. Here's where they go on, and again, very convenient how these people are just kind of like combing through Kate's house and they find that she has a computer. And coincidentally, Kate will go on with Curtis and be making out in a room, and then all of a sudden find this whole group of guys there just whispering while she's going on, and she's basically starting to reveal herself almost to them. And then Crash, of course, the more gentlemanly guy, says, "Hey, Burn," and then like eventually Burn has realized, oh, like you guys were in here, all of you, and like she didn't notice. And then on top of that, they start talking like computer tech together. Anyways, we're kind of cutting the quick here of what all happened from that scene instead of focusing on what's going on here. So, cut to the Plague. He's going on and he's playing some VR game, and Gil is kind of upset of like, well, hey, what the heck are you doing? You're just playing games. So Gil ends up telling Plague that he thinks that they have something, and what they have is the most like experienced hackers to be Zero Cool. So he must have something to do with this, right? Because when a hacker has had a computer in what 7 years, like he must have some ties to whatever this is going on. So, which that's gotta suck, right? Like, man, if you do one thing, uh, however long, you're just kind of labeled like this threat to uh through society forever, and all these agents, all these people will come to you and be like, "Oh, you must have some ties to this," when really they don't. So, or sometimes they actually do, and they're trying to get away with it. Anyways, so here's where we cut to having all these agents break into Crash's home when they really have absolutely nothing on him. And Crash is to go on and have this like this separate time talking to Plague. So Plague is going on and saying like, well, hey, I'd like a treaty between us, and Plague is like, well, yeah, I know, Crash, that you don't like to rat on your friends and everything like that, but like, if anything, like, he wants the two of them to become allies, and the more and more that Crash resists, the more that Plague goes on and takes a bat to Crash's stereo, and he says, hey, yeah, we'll be in touch. Because the Plague is going to go on and figure out a way to get what he wants out of Crash, and he squeezes him by the only thing that he really cares about, which is to be his mother. So the Plague realizes that there's value there, to figure out to manipulate Crash in doing what he wants. So, and here's where we have that first like really awkward dream, because Crash all of a sudden has this door open, and Angelina Jolie's character, Kate, just whips open her coat, and I'm not sure what she had on in that coat there, but like it almost looked like she just had that coat on and nothing else. So Kate goes on and jumps on top of Crash and starts making out with him, and then shortly thereafter that, all these agents are breaking in and they're trying to get to Crash, and it's like, what the heck is going on? And then we realize, oh, this is all just a dream. So now here's where Crash is at Kate's party. Crash talks to Freak, and Freak mentions about Kate's mother and how she's this certain author that goes on and talks about how men are emotional amoebas and all this stuff. So we cut to Crash and Freak meeting up with Nikon and Serial, and they're all of a sudden checking up on this one girl, and her name is Lisa Blair, and he knows her address, he knows her apartment building, and everything. And Crash immediately asks Nikon, "How exactly do you know that information?" And he's like, "Well, weirdly enough, I have a photographic memory, and somehow he probably hacked into something somewhere and figured out where she lives." So plus Nikon, yeah, has this photographic memory. So we have Agent Ray that is within this party, but it won't really matter that much. So I don't know why exactly he's going on and doing what he's doing here, because it won't lead to anything. Joey, it seems, is to be in some uh, addiction group, and eventually, after people kind of stand up and mention their addiction, Joey's like, "Well, I'm not really an addict," but everybody's like, "Yeah, yeah, you are an addict." And so he's like, "Well, yeah, I really like my computer, but like, I don't think I'm an addict." So like, yeah, yeah. So Joey's like, "Well, yeah, how about I get some coffee?" And so cut back to the party. So Crash gets into Kate's room as well as the rest of the group of guys, and they spot her computer, and they realize how substantial it is, how like cutting edge it is, and how wowed they are by just simply turning the screen on and like, ooh, wow. So all of a sudden, here's where we have Kate and we have Curtis, and they're making out, and the guys turn the lights out, so hoping that she won't notice them. So everybody's all starting whispering, and so eventually Crash will interrupt uh, this makeout sesh by saying the word burn loud so that way Kate can hear it. So Kate all of a sudden is to ask like, "Hey, what are you doing in my room?" And they're like, "Well, hey, we're just looking at your software. We're looking at your RAM here." And she's like, "Well, yeah, like the RAM is triple the RAM and this and that." So I'm kind of curious if honestly Angelina Jolie like really did go on and do any research for this role. Does she actually know anything about computers after doing this movie? Or was she just saying these lines because she just had to? Like, does she really know what she was talking about? I'm kind of curious if any of these people who were to go on and do this movie ended up learning anything about computers after this. Or maybe it was all just like a like they didn't retain any of this. It was just them just saying these lines and like yeah, they never became like computer people after this. Would be kind of curious. So, because I don't think a single one of these people were actually computer people. I think it was just like, hey, like, uh, these were just lines to memorize. Plus, also, man, like any of this tech stuff, I'm sure is really hard. Because of course we'd have, uh, like I just watched an interview of Brent Spiner, the guy from Star Trek Next Generation, who would go on and talk about him being Data in Star Trek, and it mentioned how hard it was to get all those lines down, and so yeah, so uh, it was Brent Spiner and Inside of You that would mention how difficult it was. So, anyways, I know that's not from this movie, but whatever, it's just whatever. Anyways, so here's the reveal to both Kate's character and Dave's character, who the code names of both of them are. So Dave finds out that Kate is to be Acid Burn, and Acid Burn finds out that Dave is Crash Override. So the two of them find out that it's like, oh, well, yeah, you were, because Kate was like, yeah, you were approaching on my territory. And so here's, we cut to the plague that's talking to Margot. And so he's going to go on and decide to pretend to be the sheriff to get into these police files. And he's going to go on and do an adjustment to replace this one other person's criminal files with Crash's mother. So that way he can squeeze her for information. Because eventually, the plague finds out the history of Crash's mother and finds out the whole custody thing and says, "Oh, well, this guy must really like his mother, so he's going to do anything to protect her." So that's good because then I'll use that against him. So Crash stays behind in the party to continue to look into Kate's computer, and Kate says to Crash, "Is like, I don't think you're gonna be able to handle that kind of computer." And he's like, "I think I'll do fine." So he's really looking at all the stats of it, and really curious about how really powerful it really is. So he's like fully testing all the operational systems and making sure that it is really good. And Kate's saying like, "Well, yeah, like my computer is like the top of the line computer." So So here's where Kate throws back the whole like, "Hey, so yeah, you were that crash override, right? Um, mess with the best, die with like the rest." Anyways, so here is where Kate challenges Crash to a challenge to see who can best one another. And so they're like, okay, like if we really are gonna go on and do this, like we gotta have like the our friends set the parameters. So they go on and they do that. So what eventually ends up happening is both Crash and both Kate are to go on and try to make Richard Gill's life a living hell. So the first thing they do is they make his credit card invalid. Uh, to where Gil goes on, he tries to pay for a meal, and the waiter goes on and takes the card and cuts it right in front of him. The next thing they do is on Crash's side. Crash goes on and is to put out a ad uh, for guys to go on and call up this guy, and it's like a calling agency for anybody to kind of get a date. So and and Crash goes into detail about yeah uh uh cross dressers uh or cross dresser looking for discreet friend uh to bring dreams to reality, leather lace and water sports, uh transvestites welcome. So all of a sudden now we have Gil who's getting flooded with all these calls endlessly, where Gil is going on and reading all of his messages from his phone, and it's all these guys that are going on and saying how they're going to go on and lick this guy, um, and and everything in between, and calling him a stallion, and 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 so further, Gil is going on and having all these like condescending things to say to them, but they all sound very sexual in nature. It kind of feels like the John Cena kind of insults is like, uh, or I don't beat asses, I lick them, or whatever. It's like, so stupid. So Gil goes on and he, like, weirdly after he is trying to insult all these people, he weirdly was so disgusted by his own phone that like he has to like look at his hands and like want to like wipe them off because he's just so disgusted by his own phone now. For all of those calls, just disgusted him, which is kind of funny. So the next step after this is that they go on and they figure out a way to have Gil have traffic violations and have his crimes be so severe that he ends up getting arrested by somebody. So the next thing we see is Gil getting arrested, and Gil is desperately trying to mention who he is and how this guy should not be arresting him, but he's doing it anyways. So now it's Crash's turn. So Crash goes on and does the only thing that is really left to do, which is to adjust for Gil to be claimed as deceased. So he's dead. So for paperwork is concerned, Gil is dead. So, funny enough, Gil goes on and he calls these accountants up, and the accountants go on and they tell him, it's like, well, yeah, it seems that you've been declared dead. He's like, I've been declared what now? Like, I'm here talking to you. So, and I thought that was kind of funny. So Crash goes on and tells the guys how he had gone on to declare Gil dead. And at this point, it's now 60 points to 60 points. They're now tied between one another of ruining Gil's life. So the whole bet was, if Kate wins, Crash is going to be her slave. If Crash wins, they're going to go on a date with one another. Then the stakes end up getting higher, and so Crash ends up saying, like, well, hey, like, so if I win, Kate, you're gonna go on and you're gonna wear a dress on our date. And Kate says, like, well, hey, if I win, then you're gonna wear a dress. So, and Crash agrees to that. So the next thing we all of a sudden see is this kind of S&M kind of leatherly lace Crash and Kate kind of being intimate, and then all of a sudden we find out that Kate is wake up from this dream and she used to probably be having a bit of a wet dream. Well, for female it'd be a little bit different, but maybe still like a little bit different. If anything, sweaty, so that could be. Anyways, so uh, so Kate goes on and opens her locker for Crash to see, and she's already prepared his his what is going to be his future dress if he loses, which of course he won't. So we cut to then Dave at his home getting this package that he has to sign for. He opens the package up and he realizes that it's a laptop, and so we have the plague going on a video, and mentioning how the two of them are samurais, they're keyboard cowboys, and how unique they are compared to everyone else, and how everyone else is just cattle for them to moo. And so the plague goes on and says, well, hey, I need your help, you need my help. So if anything, uh, like, enjoy the laptop and tell me where the disc is. So next we have Joey, and he has finally gone on to have his mother say, it's like, okay, like, you look miserable, you're not Grodd anymore, it's fine. So Joey goes on, he gets the disc from his vent, and he now goes on and meets up with Freak and hands him this disc and explains what it is, and all of a sudden Freak realizes that Joey is being followed because there's these agents, of course, Agent Ray and this other agent with this camera on him, and they're taking pictures. So Joey and Phoenix start running off here, and Phoenix has the disc, and so he hides it by these lockers. So Freak is now thinking that he's gonna get arrested soon at some point, because anybody used to have this disc, like, the next thing we'll see them do is get arrested right after that. So Phoenix is thinking that he's going to get arrested and that he's going to have to tear away all these papers and destroy all of his stuff so that way they don't find out all the crimes that he did. And then all of a sudden he wakes up from this dream after Gil says, "I'm watching you." So Freak wakes up from his dream and his mother is there. And then all of a sudden, that's when the agents start busting in and the mom starts slapping Freak, and Freak is to go on and say it's like, "Hey, arrest me, please," so that way he won't get slapped around by his mother. So, Freak is to go on to jail and have one phone call, and he ends up calling none other than Kate, explaining where the disc is because he cryptically says like, "Well, hey, um, I hid it in a place where you saw me hid it in a place at one other time." He explained it like similar to that way, but I kind of muffed it up. So Phoenix ends up explaining what had happened to him, and so Kate goes on to retrieve the floppy disk, and next both Kate and Serial make their way to Crash. They knock on Crash's door, and Crash's mother opens it. It's like, "Oh, I guess I know what all the fuss is about." Because now that Crash's mom had finally met this girl, it's like, "Oh, okay, like, I get it." So, Kate and Serial make their way to Crash and go on to ask him if he could just copy this disc, just in case if something ever happens to them, that at least they'll have some kind of proof to give to the lawyers of what had happened to them. Crash wants nothing to do with the disc because anybody that touches it will end up just getting arrested. And Crash is to just kind of be concerned about like his record at this point. So Crash gives in to Kate wanting to have him uh, copy this disc, and so shortly thereafter that we would have Crash and we would have the Plague that are talking to one another. And here's where Plague goes on and is to force Crash's hand by saying like, "Well, hey, like I'll go on and I'll change your mother's record, and if anything, like someone will arrest her tomorrow." So Crash is to say, "Okay, I have the disc, you can pick it up." So Crash is to be waiting by this phone booth and is to say it's like, "Well, hey, like the person that had this, like they didn't know what it was," and Play goes on and tells Crash, it's like, "Hey, like your mother will be fine, Kate will be fine," like convincing him it's like, "Hey, like it's all gonna be okay. Like you just taking this disc, it'll all be over with." So Plague, weirdly enough, is to be on a skateboard right next to this limo, and I don't know why that has to have been done that way. It just comes off as strange. So the Plague just rides off, and Crash starts to chase after him, then he disappears. So it seems that they were to go on and have a copy of the disc after all. And they go on to figure out what was on the disc, but then realize it's incomplete. So they figure out that there is like whole transactions that were going on, these whole 10-cent transactions. They were going to lead to something big, but they weren't exactly sure what because I guess they didn't download the whole thing. So and this is after so much time of like siphoning through all of this trash to figure out why it was so valuable. Like days and hours just passed for them to just figure this all out. So we now have Crash that goes on to reveal to the group that he was Zero Cool. And so he tells them that he gave the yellow disc to Plague because he had to, because he had a record. And they hate on him for doing it, but then they realize, like, no, like, it makes a lot of sense. Like, he was just protecting himself. So, excuse me, they go on and they realize, like, well, there's only one thing left to do, and they need to re-crash into this building. They need to hack uh, back into this building. And so all of them are going on and saying, like, how long it's going to really take them to be able to get and hack into that. And they're talking about how many minutes it'll take, and everybody's just kind of volunteering at this point to be part of this caper. So the next thing we see is both Crash and both Burn, and they're siphoning through this garbage, and all of a sudden there ends up being this security guard, and he's yelling for them, and Kate fires off this flare gun to scare this guy away, and so both Kate and Crash like jump out of this trash bag, this trash bag, this trash container, and so now we see Serial that's going on and planning this bug uh, at this woman's office, and we have Nikon that is going through this office, supposedly delivering flowers, but he's really just looking at all of the computers so that way he can remember like 50 different passwords. So now cut to the Plague and Margot. And they're looking at this screen that says either cancel or launch. This is to either cancel or launch the Da Vinci Code virus. And eventually they consider that they need to still launch the virus. And yeah, like it is going to be really bad, but if anything, it's going to be the lesser of two evils. So the next thing we see here is these boats that will supposedly capsize. Plague is going on and talking to Gil about how their system had gotten hacked into yet again. And so this leads to Gil assuming that this must have to do with something with Crash and his friends. So Gil is going on and calling that all of not only Crash but his friends are getting arrested here. We have Serial and we have Nikon who intercept this phone call because we have Serial that was to bug this girl's phone. So Nikon and Serial like, all right, like we know ahead of time that they're looking for us. So if anything, we're not going to be here. So the guys all make their way to a Subway, not the sandwich joint, an actual Subway. They're eating some Subway sandwiches. $5 footlong, everybody. No. So here's where they go on and they figure out how these oil spills were like perfectly planned on the 14th. But if anything, like the whole money thing was actually going on the 13th. So, excuse me. I'm trying to think of what else I need to say here. So they're trying to figure out that instead of like people embezzling on the company, that if anything, they're trying to blame anyone else, and they're trying to blame it on these hackers. And so it's all being pinned on them. What's going on here? So Kate realizes that they need more help than what they really have. So Kate is going to go on and find both Razor and Blade. So they go to this club and they find these guys. They're kind of being these hosts at this kind of uh, band concert thing. So both Kate and both Crash try to go on and try to get to the Razor and Blade, but eventually this band starts uh, going off, and when Crash and Kate try to get to the stage, eventually they end up getting thrusted off, and then they're kind of being carried by people. They're carried in like a god, what is it called? Like a wave or whatever it's called. Uh, I don't know. Anyways, so eventually Kate and Crash do have this room they make it to, and there's this weird arm gun thing that looks so strange, but they'll find out that the gun is to just be a flame at the end of it. It's just to look threatening. So Razor and Blade are to appear on these screens and ask why is it that these people are here. And it's funny how Crash just asks, "We come in peace." So Kate goes on to explain to Razor and Blade why they're there. She explains about the whole virus and the oil spill, and that there's people that took a worm to steal money. So eventually, after explaining all this, both Razor and Blade realize that if these people are going to go on and do this, they're going to need a army of hackers, and they're going to need them to really like crash uh, through this building's defenses and kind of keep them busy, so these guys can get the certain file that they need to get the information that they want. So the next thing we see is Crash going on and doing some adjustments to traffic lights to have them all turn on green on a very specific time. So our characters are in a park somewhere playing chess, and they end up getting paged to go to Grand Central Station, hack the planet. So all of our group are going on and rollerblading to make their way to Grand Central Station. And here's where all the lights turn green. So the hackers are all being followed by these agents, but then the agents end up crashing into all these cars, and so the hackers make their way to Grand Central Station. So Kate goes on and tells Serial to adjust the phones, and for Joey to go on and be manning one of the phones so he can go on and he can hack. So Joey's gonna go on and be as qualified as the rest of them to like, hey man, like we gotta get through here. So everybody ends up turning their computers on, and they all have their individual like screens for each one of them. So we have Hal and we have Plague that go on and find out that there's something going on here. That there's all of a sudden these Cookie Monster hacks and like all these kind of weird, goofy Pac-Man and all these kind of goofy hacks going on here. So Plague is going on and trying to fix all these, and another one pops up, another one pops up. So they're saying how all of these hacks are going on and feeling very much like a cancer, and they're starting to spread everywhere. Kate ends up mentioning how the hacks, like, they're being fixed too quickly and they're being found out too quickly. So Gib, it seems, has tracked down where they are, and so he's trying to get there. Eventually, when he gets there, he'll find out that the place that they were to be fed to be believing that they were going to find those people in, yeah, they're not really there. Uh, if anything, they had adjusted the phones it to make it think that they were actually going to be at a certain area. So, since Kate needs reinforcements, we have Razor and we have Blade, and they're calling and they're asking if they're fashionably late. We then all of a sudden have all these hackers from all over the world joining in, uh, saying that's like, okay, let's go, let's get started, let's do this. All right. So all these hackers from everywhere all join in on this hack, and now we start to see this like weird phone booth thing that kind of just keeps looping and circling around, and that was actually a really cool visual there, because I liked what they were doing. So more and more of these hacks start to happen as Plague, Hal, and Margot starts watching on and mentioning how it's to affect the brain of the computer, how it's coming off like a brain cancer. So Crash gets to the point where he makes his way to the garbage file and he's starting to get information from it. But eventually he was to get locked out and cut off. So the only person that can go on and still get close enough, quick enough, is to be Joey's computer. So Crash goes on and tells Joey exactly where to go and what to do. So Joey then goes on and gets into the Crash file and downloads it or copies it. So at that point, we then have the ships that don't capsize, the Da Vinci Code uh, virus to kind of be just kind of having the Da Vinci character kind of just kind of morph and kind of shift its visual, basically saying that that wasn't going to actually happen and they fixed the problem. So now on the screen, there's to be this thing that says, "Arf, arf, we got you." And then it says, "Mess with the best, die like the rest." So the guys realized that they had won here, that they had beaten them. And then all of a sudden, here's when the agents arrive, and so Crash goes on and throws the yellow disc to the trash, and so Crash notices that Serial is to be in the crowd, and Serial keeps talking about trash and hack the planet and trashing and whatever he just says over and over about trashing, and Serial is to figure it out. That it's like, okay, I'll go into one of the trashes and figure out if the disc is to be there, and he finds it. So now Plague and Margot are celebrating. They're opening up the champagne, and they think that they have this money, and they think they're in the clear. So Crash is to go on and tell Gil that Kate had nothing to do with what they were doing there. That Kate knows nothing about computers, and if anything, like Crash is trying to put all the blame on him instead of any blame being put on Kate here. So Gil goes into another room, and they end up turning on this speaker. Come to find out, Gil is going to go on and talk to Crash's mother, and Crash's mother is completely on Crash's side, going on to kind of defend him in a way and mention how her son is a genius. And so the further and further that this mother starts talking, Crash and Cater to overhear this, and they're like, man, like your mom is like really cool. And Crash is like, yeah, she is. So Gil is going on and doing this interview as Joey and Nikon are being uh, taken somewhere in the background. So here's all of a sudden when Serial is on TV, as he's seemingly being this host instead of Razor and Blade. So here's where Serial goes on and is to mention about the disc that has this information about the $25 million that these people like stole from, and and is to just show the proof and everything of that nature. So and this is to be broadcasted everywhere. Margot and Plague are to be like, oh, like, hey, we're caught. And so Margot goes on to be watching this, and then she looks at Plague next to her, and he's completely disappeared from the bed, which is kind of funny. So the next thing we see is Serial even presenting the code for these people to be able to go on and be able to do some investigating of this. So the next thing we see is Margot getting arrested and put in jail, and we see that the Plague is to be in this plane, and he's under this disguise, this beard and this mustache and this old man looking disguise. And the stewardess to say, "Hey, you need anything?" He's like, "I'd like a pillow." So he goes on and he gets a pillow from the stewardess, and he puts his hand up to kind of adjust the pillow, and he gets it handcuffed. Gil's like, "Ah, I gotcha." So the plague is going on and demanding, uh, like, what the heck is going on? He's yelling for the stewardess. So the next thing we see is Crash and Kate are actually on this date together. And it seems that also Kate is going to have to go on and wear this dress because I guess ultimately they just decided that Crash had won the bet because really they decided this because they're like, hey man, like he wasn't gonna get a girlfriend anyways. So like we just had to go on and just kind of fix this so that way he would win, so that way he can go on this date. So and Crash even goes on to explain all this to Kate. So the next thing we see as the two of them are now swimming on this pool of a rooftop, that they notice that these buildings say crash and burn on it, and they have a big laugh at it because it's like, well, yeah, like even uh serialists make a joke of like, well, hey, you're Crash and he's burned, huh? Crash and burn, huh? Like, also, I liked when Serial was to go on and have that whole speech to both Crash and Burn, where he goes on and mentions about how people should just put away childish things, and he mentions what verse that's from and everything, and like how like the two of them should just kind of put their shit on pause because there's something better, there's something more going on here. But anyways, so Crash goes on to reveal to Kate how he's been having some weird, and she's like, dreams, and then the both of them kiss. The both of them go underwater and they start making out, and eventually the credits roll. So with that said, I'm gonna get the heck out of here because I know that this movie was probably not 2 hours long. But either way, like it's up there. I've reviewed it, so and I apologize how many severely amount of times that I was yawning. I'm sorry. I've been kind of doing these videos a lot later and later, and it's right around the time that I would go on and I would actually get some sleep. So I apologize for that. But really, uh, like I'm just really continuing to just try and push myself to still get these things done, but also like I've kind of also been just kind of doing some side stuff that take way too long of a time to accomplish. So that's probably why um, like these things are kind of getting done later and later and later. But if anything, like this at least will be uploaded, and we'll see how this may do something, may do nothing. Either way, I was just happy to say that I can go on and watch this movie. In all honesty, I actually do have a physical copy of this movie. So yeah, like I had gone on to on a video showcase that. So legitimately, I do actually have a copy of this. Um, but yeah, but I of course rewatched it. Um, and it was like, okay, cool. Like, so that's it. I'm gonna get that out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.